Lieutenant Commander Sam Parker crouched behind a fallen stone pillar and checked his scanner for the third time in 10 minutes. The readings were still impossible, showing energy patterns that should not exist according to everything humans knew about physics. The ancient ruins stretched out before him in the pale light of two distant suns, their strange architecture both beautiful and unsettling. 3 months had passed since the meeting at Nexus Prime, and humanity had been assigned to mining operations on 12 different worlds. The work was hard and boring, exactly what the Council wanted. But Captain Morrison had other plans. While most human ships dutifully extracted minerals from dead rocks, a few specially chosen vessels like Parker's had been given secret missions to explore the archaeological sites that Dr. Chen had discovered. Parker's team consisted of 5 people who could be trusted with secrets that might shake the galaxy. Dr. Chen was with them, of course, along with communications specialist Lisa Rodriguez, and 2 Marines who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a dangerous mission. The Council had made it clear that unauthorized exploration was forbidden, but Parker had never been good at following rules he did not agree with. "Sam, you need to see this." Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. The scientist was 50 meters away, standing before a wall covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move when Parker looked at them directly. "These writings are not just old. They are ancient beyond anything we have ever found. The mathematical concepts alone suggest a civilization that understood reality in ways we can barely imagine." Parker made his way carefully through the rubble. The ruins were dangerous in more ways than one. Some of the technology was still active after countless thousands of years, creating fields of energy that could kill a person in seconds. Lisa had already had to pull him back twice, when his curiosity had nearly gotten him fried by defensive systems that still guarded whatever secrets lay buried here. The wall that Chen had found was different from the others, where most of the ruins were built from stone and metal. This section seemed to be made from crystallized light itself. The symbols moved across its surface like living things, forming patterns that hurt to look at for too long. When Parker reached out to touch it, his hand passed through the surface as if it were made of water. "Doctor, I do not think this is a wall." Parker's voice was quiet with wonder. "I think it is some kind of interface." Chen nodded and pulled out a device he had built from human and alien technology. The scanner hummed to life and immediately began detecting energy patterns that made no sense. "The power source for this is not local. According to these readings, the energy is coming from somewhere else entirely. Maybe even another dimension." Lisa Rodriguez had been monitoring their communications from the ship in orbit. Her job was to make sure they could escape quickly if Council patrol ships showed up. "Guys, I'm picking up some weird signals from down there. It is like something is trying to talk to us, but the language is not anything in our databases." Parker and Chen looked at each other. They had hoped to find evidence of ancient civilizations, but they had not expected to find anything that was still active. "Lisa, can you boost our comm systems? If something is trying to communicate, we should listen." The next few minutes were filled with static and strange sounds that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then suddenly a voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded like it was coming from very far away. Finally, someone with the curiosity to listen. "I have been waiting so long for beings who would ask the right questions." Parker nearly jumped out of his skin. "Who is this? Where are you?" The voice laughed, and the sound was warm and friendly despite the strange circumstances. "I am what you might call a librarian, though my people had a different word for it. I am the curator, guardian of knowledge and keeper of memory. And you, small humans, have found one of my hidden archives." Chen stepped closer to the crystalline wall. "Your people? Who were your people?" "The Council says they are the first advanced civilizations in this galaxy." The curator was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, the warmth was gone from its voice. "The Council lies. They are not the first, nor were they ever the greatest. They are the children of servants, beings who betrayed their creators and stole their place in the galaxy." Parker felt his blood run cold. If this was true, then everything the Council had told humanity was false. What happened to the real advanced civilizations? Where did they go? The wall began to glow brighter, and images started to form in the crystalline surface. Parker saw cities that floated among the stars, ships that moved between dimensions like stepping through doorways, and beings of pure energy that danced among the planets like gods. There were 7 great races who ruled this galaxy in ages past. The Eternals, who merged flesh and machine until they became immortal. The resonants, who learned to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The ethereals, who gave up physical form to become beings of pure thought and energy. More images flowed across the wall, showing wonders that made human technology look like stone tools. Each race specialized in different aspects of reality. Some mastered time, others controlled space itself. Together they built a civilization that spanned the galaxy and reached into realms beyond physical existence. Chen was recording everything, his hands shaking with excitement. What happened to them? How did they disappear? The curator's voice became sad and angry at the same time. They did not disappear. They evolved beyond the need for physical existence and began the process of ascending to higher planes of reality. But they made one mistake. They trusted their servants to maintain the physical realm while they completed their transformation. Parker began to understand. The servants betrayed them. Yes, the ancestors of the Zeltharians, the Vex, and the Kryn were created as helper races, designed to manage the practical details of running a galactic civilization. When their creators began to ascend, these servants saw their chance to seize power for themselves. They used weapons designed to maintain order to instead destroy their masters before the ascension could be completed. The wall showed images of great battles, with servant armies turning against beings of incredible power. Parker watched cities burn and stars go dark as the greatest civilization in galactic history was torn apart by its own children. Those who survived the betrayal went into hiding. Some retreated to pocket dimensions, others disguised themselves as primitive species, and a few became beings of pure energy that hid in places the servants could never reach. Lisa's voice crackled through the comm. Guys, we have a problem. I am detecting council ships heading this way. 3 of them moving fast. Parker cursed under his breath. They had found the most important discovery in human history, and now they had to run before they could learn more. Curator, we have to leave. Is there a way we can contact you again? The wall began to fade, but the curator's voice remained strong. Find the others, brave humans. Find the survivors of the 7 races. They are waiting for someone who is not afraid to challenge the false rulers of this galaxy. Your species may be young, but you have something the servants never learned. You have the courage to seek truth no matter how dangerous it might be. The images disappeared and the wall became ordinary stone again. Parker grabbed Chen and started running for their extraction point. Behind them, the ruins began to shut down their defensive systems, hiding their secrets once more from any council investigators who might come looking. As their ship lifted off and jumped to hyperspace just ahead of the council patrol, Parker stared out at the stars and felt the weight of what they had learned. Humanity had come to the galaxy thinking they were meeting their betters. Instead, they had discovered that the rulers of the known galaxy were nothing more than successful criminals who had murdered their way to power. Dr. Chen was already planning their next move. Sam, we need to find more sites like this one. If the curator is right, there are survivors out there who remember the truth. We need to find them and learn everything we can. Parker nodded, knowing that they had just started down a path that would either save the galaxy or get them all killed. Then we better get started. Something tells me the council is not going to like what we are doing, and they have a lot more ships than we do. But as he looked at the determination in Chen's eyes and heard Lisa already plotting courses to other ancient sites, Parker felt something he had not experienced since humanity first reached for the stars. He felt hope. The galaxy was bigger and stranger than anyone had imagined, and somewhere out there, the real inheritors of its greatest civilization were waiting for someone brave enough to find them. Commander Ryan Blake watched the impossible sight unfold on his main screen and wondered if he was losing his mind. The ship that had just appeared out of nowhere looked like it was made of living crystal, its surface reflecting light in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like water. According to his sensors, the vessel was there and not there at the same time, existing in their dimension while somehow being somewhere else entirely. 6 months had passed since the discovery of the curator, and humanity had been busy. While the council believed that humans were obediently mining asteroids in the outer rim, secret fleets had been searching for survivors of the ancient races. The work was dangerous and difficult, requiring them to visit places that official star charts claimed were empty space or radiation hazards. Blake commanded a small fleet of ships that had been modified with technology, reverse-engineered from the ruins. Engineer Monica Webb had led the team that figured out how to combine human engineering with ancient knowledge, creating vessels that could do things the Council would consider impossible. His own ship could now phase between dimensions for short periods, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. The crystal ship had appeared near a gas giant that the Council had marked as uninhabitable. Blake's team had come here following hints from the curator about survivors who lived in the storms of such worlds. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. "Commander, I am receiving a communication." Lisa Rodriguez had been transferred to Blake's ship after her success in contacting the curator. Her ability to work with alien communication systems had proven invaluable in their search for the hidden survivors. "The signal is coming on frequencies we have never seen before, but somehow our modified equipment can understand it." Blake nodded. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It sounded like music made of light, with harmonies that seemed to come from multiple sources at once. "Greetings, young seekers. We are the Resonance, children of crystal and song. The curator told us of your search for truth." Dr. Chen, who had become the unofficial leader of humanity's archaeological efforts, stepped forward. "We are honored to meet you. We have learned about the betrayal of the ancient races and seek to restore the truth that was hidden." The crystal ship moved closer, and Blake could see that its surface was covered in patterns that pulsed with inner light. "We remember the time before the servant's betrayal. We were masters of dimensional travel, able to exist in multiple realities simultaneously. When the betrayal came, we retreated to the spaces between dimensions, watching and waiting." Another voice joined the conversation, this one seeming to come from the gas giant itself. It was warm and flowing like wind through leaves. "And we are the ethereals who gave up solid form long ago. We have hidden in the hearts of stars and the depths of gas giants, maintaining our knowledge while the usurpers ruled the physical realm." Blake felt excitement and fear in equal measure. They were actually talking to survivors of the galaxy's true masters, beings whose technology was so advanced that they might as well have been gods. "What do you need from us? How can humanity help restore the truth?" The resonant ship flickered, appearing to exist in several places at once. "Your species possesses something that the servants could never understand. You refuse to accept limitations imposed by others. This quality makes you ideal to unite the scattered survivors and challenge the false order." A third voice joined the conversation, this one mechanical but somehow warm at the same time. "We are the Eternal, who merged flesh and machine to achieve immortality. We have hidden ourselves in vast computer networks, preserving the knowledge of all 7 races." Blake realized that they were in the presence of representatives from 3 of the ancient races, beings who had survived for thousands of years while the Council ruled through lies and violence. "What happened to the other 4 races?" The ethereal's voice carried sadness like wind through empty spaces. 2 races completed their ascension before the betrayal, and now exist in higher dimensions beyond physical reach. 1 race chose to sleep until the time was right for awakening. The last race scattered themselves among the primitive species of the galaxy. Hiding in plain sight, Dr. Chen was recording everything, knowing that this information would change human understanding of the galaxy forever. The Council fears archaeological investigation because they know what we might find. They have built their power on lies. The crystal ship's patterns shifted to darker colors. The servants have ruled for 10,000 years, suppressing any evidence of their crimes. They destroyed entire star systems to hide the ruins of our civilizations and marked vast regions of space as forbidden to prevent discovery of surviving enclaves. Blake thought about the implications. If the ancient races could be reunited and their technology recovered, the Council's military advantage would disappear overnight. But such a plan would require careful coordination and absolute secrecy. "What would you need from us to begin this process?" The Eternal's mechanical voice carried a note of hope. "We need carriers and coordinators. The survivors are scattered across the galaxy, hidden in places the Council considers worthless or dangerous. Your ships can travel to these locations and help us re-establish contact." Monica Webb, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "We have been working on combining your technologies with human engineering. The results are promising, but we need more knowledge to create truly effective hybrid systems." The resonant ship flickered again, and suddenly a section of its hull became transparent. Inside, Blake could see beings that looked like living gemstones, their crystalline forms glowing with inner light. "We will share our dimensional manipulation technology. Combined with human creativity, it will allow your ships to travel through space-time in ways the Council cannot follow. The Ethereal's voice grew stronger. We will teach you to harness stellar energy and manipulate matter at the atomic level. Your engineers have shown remarkable ability to adapt our concepts to your technology. The Eternal added its offer. We will provide access to our knowledge networks and teach you to merge biological and artificial consciousness. The servants fear this technology because it was their creator's greatest achievement. Blake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Humanity was being offered knowledge that would make them the most powerful species in the galaxy. But with that power came the obligation to use it wisely. What about the Council? They will not stand by while we gather the survivors and rebuild ancient technology. The three voices spoke in unison, their combined words carrying the weight of 10,000 years of hidden anger. The servants have grown complacent in their false victory. They believe their rule is secure because they have suppressed the truth for so long. But truth has a way of emerging, especially when carried by those who are not afraid to seek it. Over the next several hours, Blake's team received downloads of information that would take years to fully understand. Star charts showing the locations of hidden survivor enclaves, technical specifications for technologies that seemed like magic, and most importantly, a plan for gradually awakening the sleeping powers that had once ruled the galaxy. As the meeting concluded, the resonant ship began to fade back into its home dimension. Remember, young humans, the servants' greatest weapon is the galaxy's belief that they are the rightful rulers. When that belief is shattered, their power will crumble. The Ethereal's final words came like a whisper of wind. We will be watching and waiting. When you are ready to challenge the false order, call to us through the ancient frequencies. The time of hiding is nearly over. Blake stared out at the gas giant where the Ethereals had retreated and felt the magnitude of what they had just committed to. Humanity had entered the galaxy as supplicants, seeking a place among the established powers. Now they were being asked to lead a revolution that would reshape the entire galactic order. Dr. Chen summed up what everyone was thinking. We came out here looking for archaeological artifacts. Instead, we found living history and a chance to restore justice to the galaxy. Blake nodded and began planning their next moves. The survivors were scattered across hundreds of star systems, hidden in places the Council had written off as worthless. Finding them all would take time and careful coordination. But for the first time since humanity had encountered the Galactic Council, Blake felt that they were playing to win rather than just trying to survive. The revolution was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Lisa Turner felt her ship shudder as weapons fire from a Council destroyer passed close enough to overload their shields. Around her, the joint fleet of humans and ancient race survivors fought desperately against overwhelming odds, while the Master Archive slowly came to life beneath them. The massive structure had been hidden in the center of a dead solar system for 10,000 years, waiting for someone brave enough to activate its secrets. The revolution had begun 3 days ago with coordinated strikes across 50 star systems. Human ships equipped with dimensional technology and energy manipulation systems had attacked Council installations while broadcasting the truth about the galaxy's hidden history. The response had been swift and violent, with Council fleets converging on every known human position. But the real prize was here, at the archive that contained the complete records of the 7 ancient races. Dr. Chen and the curator worked frantically in the structure's depths, trying to unlock defenses that had kept it hidden from the Council for millennia. If they succeeded, the archive's contents would be broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy, finally revealing the truth that the Council had killed to suppress. Colonel Marcus Hayes led the ground assault team, his soldiers enhanced with technology from all 3 surviving races. The Eternal had provided cybernetic upgrades that made them faster and stronger than normal humans. The Resonance had given them dimensional manipulation devices that allowed them to phase through solid matter. The Ethereals had taught them to become invisible by bending light around their bodies. Hayes and his team moved through the archive's corridors like ghosts, fighting past automated defenses that had been programmed to keep intruders out. The ancient security systems were incredibly advanced, but they had not been designed to handle attackers who could exist in multiple dimensions at once, or phase through walls like they were made of air. Above them, Commander Blake's fleet fought to keep the Council ships away from the archive. His flagship could now phase between 3 different dimensions simultaneously, making it nearly impossible for enemy weapons to lock onto. The resonant ships created dimensional barriers that deflected incoming fire, while vessels crewed by the ethereals manipulated stellar radiation to blind Council sensors. The Council forces were led by War Premier Caxthul of the Zeltharian Empire, a veteran commander who had spent centuries crushing rebellions throughout the galaxy. His flagship was a massive dreadnought that could destroy planets, and he had brought enough ships to flatten entire star systems. But he was discovering that quantity meant nothing when fighting enemies who could ignore most of the laws of physics. Turner's communications officer looked up from her station with excitement. "Captain, we are receiving signals from across the galaxy. Minor species are rising up everywhere. The truth broadcasts are working." Turner nodded grimly. The revelation that the Council's rulers were nothing more than successful criminals had sparked rebellions on thousands of worlds. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were finally fighting back, knowing that the ancient masters they had been told to fear were actually on their side. But the Council was not giving up without a fight. Supreme Counselor Vextar had ordered the deployment of planet-killer weapons, threatening to destroy entire human colonies if the rebellion did not surrender. Queen Mind Ixara had sent her swarm fleets to attack any world that showed signs of supporting the uprising. Deep in the archive, Dr. Chen finally found what he was looking for. The central control room was a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light from within. The curator's voice echoed from speakers that had not been used for 10,000 years. "Dr. Chen, you must input the awakening sequence, but be warned. Once the archive is fully active, there will be no hiding it from the Council. They will throw everything they have at this location." Chen's hands moved over controls that seemed to respond to his thoughts as much as his touch. "How long until the broadcast reaches every world in the galaxy?" 6 hours for complete transmission. The signal will be unstoppable once it begins, but we must survive long enough for it to finish. Above them, the battle was growing more intense by the minute. War Premier Caxthul had brought in reinforcements, and his ships were slowly pushing the human fleet back toward the archive. Turner could see that they were outnumbered 10-1, and even their advanced technology could not overcome those odds indefinitely. Then something incredible happened. The space around the archive began to shimmer, and new ships started appearing out of nowhere. These vessels looked like they were built from starlight itself, their hulls transparent and glowing with inner fire. The ethereals had revealed their true fleet, hidden for millennia in the hearts of nearby stars. More ships arrived, these ones looking like living crystals that sang as they moved through space. The Resonants had finally decided to abandon their hiding places in parallel dimensions and join the fight directly. Behind them came vessels that seemed to be built from pure mathematics, their impossible geometries hurting to look at directly. The tide of battle began to turn as the ancient races revealed technologies that the Council had never seen. Resonant ships created dimensional rifts that swallowed Council vessels whole. Ethereal ships turned enemy weapons back on themselves by manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. Eternal ships hacked into Council computers and turned their own systems against them. But the Council's response was desperate and vicious. Supreme Counselor Vextar activated a weapon that humanity had never known existed, a device that could destroy entire solar systems by causing their stars to collapse. The threat was clear: surrender or watch entire worlds burn. It was Admiral Kate Sullivan who provided the answer. She had been coordinating humanity's response from Earth, and now she revealed the final card in their hand. "Vextar, your threats mean nothing. We have learned to communicate with the races that ascended to higher dimensions. They have been watching this conflict, and they will not allow genocide to succeed." The space around Nexus Prime began to glow with light that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Beings of pure energy materialized in the vacuum of space, their presence causing Council ships to shut down their weapons automatically. These were the Ascended, the two races that had completed their transformation before the betrayal, and their power dwarfed anything in the physical universe. One of the Ascended spoke, its voice reaching every mind in the galaxy simultaneously. "The time of lies is over. The servants who betrayed their creators and seized power through murder will face judgment. The galaxy will learn the truth, and the old order will be restored." War Premier Caxthul made one last desperate attack, ordering his remaining ships to ram the archive directly. But the ancient defenses were finally fully active. and barriers of crystallized space-time absorbed the impact without damage. The Master Archive began its broadcast, sending the complete history of the galaxy to every communication device in known space. Colonel Hayes and his team reached the archive's central chamber just as the upload completed. Dr. Chen looked exhausted but triumphant as the last files transferred to the Galactic Communication Network. It is done. Every world in the galaxy now has access to the true history of their rulers. The Council fleet began to break apart as the truth spread. Many ships had crews from minor species who had been forced to serve the three major powers. When they learned that their oppressors were nothing more than ancient criminals, they turned their weapons on their commanders and joined the revolution. Turner watched from her bridge as the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The Council's authority had been based on fear and lies, and once those lies were exposed, their control crumbled like sand in the wind. The ancient races were returning to reclaim their rightful place as guardians of galactic civilization, and humanity had earned its position as their allies and partners. But Turner knew that the real work was just beginning. Defeating the Council was only the first step. Now they had to build something better to replace it. A galactic government based on truth and cooperation rather than domination and deceit. It would not be easy, but for the first time since humanity had reached for the stars, the future looked bright with possibility. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Nexus Prime and watched the greatest battle in galactic history unfold around him. The massive space station had become the final stronghold of the Galactic Council, and every ship that remained loyal to the old order had gathered here for one last desperate fight. But arrayed against them was a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, a combination of human ingenuity and ancient power that made the impossible seem routine. 3 weeks had passed since the Master Archive's revelations had sparked rebellions across the galaxy. The truth about the Council's origins had shattered their authority among the minor species, and hundreds of worlds had declared independence from the oppressive regime. But the three ruling races were not ready to surrender the power they had held for 10,000 years. The battle was being fought on multiple levels of reality at once. Resonant ships phased between dimensions, attacking from directions that normal physics said should not exist. Ethereal vessels manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe, turning enemy weapons into harmless light shows. Human ships enhanced with ancient technology darted between massive Council dreadnoughts like fighters attacking bombers. Morrison had been promoted to Admiral after Captain Turner was killed leading a charge against a Zeltharian battle group. Her sacrifice had allowed the Liberation Fleet to break through the outer defenses, but the cost had been terrible. Too many good people had died to reach this point, and Morrison was determined that their deaths would mean something. The Council's three-way alliance was finally starting to crack under the pressure. The Vex Confederation, always pragmatic, had begun sending secret messages offering to negotiate a separate peace. Their mechanical minds could calculate odds better than anyone, and they knew that continuing to fight was pointless. Several Vex ships had already switched sides, providing the Liberation Fleet with crucial intelligence about Council defensive systems. The Zeltharian Empire was fighting with the desperate fury of a cornered animal. Supreme Counselor Vextar had declared that he would rather see the galaxy burn than surrender to inferior beings. His ships fought to the death, ramming liberation vessels when their weapons failed and activating self-destruct systems to take enemy ships with them. The Kryn Collective had made the strangest choice of all. Queen Mind Ixara had ordered her swarm fleets to retreat to their home system and seal it off from the rest of the galaxy. Rather than face defeat, the insectoid race had chosen isolation, cutting all communication with the outside universe and surrounding their worlds with automated defense systems that would attack anything that came near. Dr. Chen worked frantically in the archive's data core, uploading the final pieces of ancient knowledge to the Liberation Fleet's computers. The survivors of the 7 races had shared everything they knew, giving humanity access to technologies that could reshape reality itself. Ships could now travel instantly between any 2 points in the galaxy. Weapons could erase matter from existence, and defensive systems could create pockets of spacetime that were immune to any attack. Colonel Hayes led the assault on Nexus Prime's central command center, his enhanced soldiers moving through corridors filled with the galaxy's most advanced defenses. The Eternal had provided them with technology that merged human consciousness with artificial intelligence, creating warriors who could think faster than computers and react quicker than any biological being. The resistance was fierce. Zeltharian elite guards fought with weapons that could cut through solid matter like air, while Vex combat units used personal shield generators that made them nearly invulnerable. But Hayes and his team had advantages that the Council could not match. They could phase through walls, become invisible at will, and coordinate their actions through direct mental links provided by Eternal technology. In space, Commander Blake had taken command of the main assault fleet after Morrison was promoted to overall command. His ship was now more energy than matter, existing partially in higher dimensions where Council weapons could not reach. Around him, the combined fleet of humans and ancient races pressed their attack against the station's defenses. The turning point came when the Ascended finally decided to intervene directly. The two races that had completed their transformation to higher dimensions had been watching the battle with growing concern. Supreme Counselor Vextar had activated a doomsday weapon hidden in Nexus Prime's core, a device that would destroy everything within 100 light-years if the station fell. Beings of pure light materialized around the doomsday weapon, their presence causing it to simply cease to exist. The Ascended spoke in unison, their words reaching every mind in the galaxy. The age of violence and deception is ending. Those who would destroy rather than accept defeat have forfeited their right to exist. Supreme Counselor Vextar made one final desperate attack, leading his personal guard in an assault on the Archive's core. He had realized that destroying the knowledge of the ancient races might still allow the Council to maintain some form of power. But he found his way blocked by Morrison and a team of human marines enhanced with the best technology from all 7 races. The battle was brief but intense. Vextar's weapons could melt through solid steel, but Morrison's team could phase between dimensions to avoid the attacks. The Zeltharian leader's armor could deflect energy beams, but human weapons charged with ethereal technology struck at the atomic level, bypassing physical protection entirely. When it was over, Supreme Counselor Vextar lay defeated in the Archive's central chamber. His dreams of eternal rule finally ended. The last Council fleet surrendered an hour later, and the 10,000-year reign of the servant races came to an end. The aftermath of victory brought new challenges. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered at a renamed Nexus Prime to establish a new form of galactic government. Unlike the old Council, which had been based on domination by the strongest races, the new Galactic Assembly operated on principles of cooperation and mutual respect. Morrison found himself chosen as the first human representative to the Assembly's governing council. It was a responsibility he had never wanted, but one that he could not refuse. Humanity had led the revolution that freed the galaxy, and now they had to help build something better to replace what they had destroyed. Kira Thane, who had survived the war despite being captured twice by Council forces, became the first director of the new Galactic Truth Commission. Her job was to ensure that the real history of the galaxy was preserved and taught to future generations, so that the lies and deceptions of the Council era could never be repeated. Dr. Chen established the Galactic Archaeological Institute, dedicated to uncovering and preserving the achievements of all species throughout history. The ancient races shared their knowledge freely, helping younger civilizations understand technologies and concepts that had been hidden for millennia. The survivors of the 7 races chose different paths forward. Some resonants returned fully to normal space-time, rebuilding their civilization among the stars. Others continued their explorations of parallel dimensions, serving as bridges between realities. The ethereals established new colonies in gas giants and stellar coronas, places where their energy-based forms could thrive. The Eternal began teaching other species about the merger of biological and artificial consciousness, sharing the secret of immortality with those ready to accept it. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy's species viewed each other. The old system had been based on fear and competition, with stronger races dominating weaker ones. The new order emphasized cooperation and the belief that diversity of thought and biology made civilization stronger. Morrison often stood in the observation deck of the renamed station and looked out at the ships of dozens of species working together on peaceful projects. Human vessels worked alongside resonant crystal ships to explore new dimensions. Ethereal energy beings collaborated with human scientists to understand the deepest mysteries of the universe. Former council worlds sent their brightest minds to learn from the ancient races, eager to make up for 10,000 years of stagnation. The galaxy had entered a new age of exploration and discovery. Technologies that had been forgotten for millennia were being rediscovered and improved. Species that had hidden from the council for thousands of years emerged from their hiding places to share their unique perspectives on existence. Young races that had been suppressed by the old order finally had the chance to reach their full potential. As Morrison watched a human ship depart for the edge of the galaxy, carrying a mixed crew of humans and ancient race survivors on a mission to contact civilizations beyond the borders of known space, he reflected on how far humanity had come. They had arrived at the Galactic Council as supplicants, hoping for a place among the established powers. Instead, they had become the catalyst for the greatest change in galactic history. The future was bright with possibility, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was truly free. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Edge and watched the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The structure was bigger than any city on Earth, with towers that stretched in all directions and ships moving like tiny insects around its surface. This was Nexus Prime, the center of the Galactic Council, and humanity was about to meet the rulers of the galaxy for the first time. Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because of his calm nature and quick thinking. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years and had never backed down from a challenge. Today would test him more than any battle he had ever fought. Beside him stood Kira Thane, the diplomatic representative who would speak for all of humanity. She was young but smart, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The communication system crackled to life. A cold voice spoke in perfect English, though Jake could tell it was not natural speech. Human vessel Terra's Edge, you will dock at Bay 779. Your escort will meet you there. Do not deviate from your assigned path. Jake nodded to his helmsman. Take us in, slow and steady. He had learned long ago that showing respect was important when meeting new people, even if they seemed unfriendly. The ship moved through the docking bay doors, and Jake saw his first glimpse of alien architecture. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans, with corridors that could fit 3 men side by side, and ceilings that disappeared into shadow. The escort that met them was unlike anything Jake had imagined. The being stood 8 feet tall with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its voice carried the same cold tone they had heard over the radio. I am Counselor Vexmar of the Vex Confederation. You will follow me to the assembly chamber. Jake and Kira walked through corridors filled with beings from dozens of different worlds. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Jake had trouble believing they were real. Giant insect-like creatures scuttled past on 6 legs, their compound eyes reflecting the light like mirrors. Tall, thin beings with golden skin glided by without making a sound. In the distance, Jake could see creatures that looked like living crystals, their bodies catching and throwing back the light in rainbow patterns. The assembly chamber was enormous, with rows of seats rising up like a stadium. At the center sat 3 massive thrones, each one occupied by a being that radiated power and authority. The largest throne held a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a man, with scales that shifted from green to gold, and eyes that burned like small suns. This was Supreme Counselor Vextar of the Zeltharian Empire. To his right sat a being that seemed to be made of living metal, its surface smooth and reflective. When it moved, Jake could hear the soft whir of machinery from inside its body. This was the representative of the Vex Confederation, the cold and calculating race that had turned themselves into machines over thousands of years. The third throne held something that made Jake's skin crawl. It looked like a massive insect queen, with a bloated body and dozens of smaller creatures crawling over its surface. These were her offspring, he realized, all connected to her mind in a way that humans could barely understand. This was Queen Mind Ixara of the Kryn Collective. Supreme Counselor Vextar spoke first, his voice booming through the chamber. So these are the humans we have heard about. Small creatures from a small world on the edge of civilized space. His eyes fixed on Jake and Kira, and Jake felt like a mouse being studied by a cat. What do you offer the Galactic Council, little beings? Kira stepped forward with courage that Jake admired. We offer friendship, trade, and our unique perspective on the universe. Humanity has always been curious about the stars, and we hope to learn from the great civilizations represented here. The three rulers looked at each other, and Jake could see something pass between them that he did not understand. It was Queen Mind Ixara who spoke next, her voice like the buzz of 1,000 insects. Curiosity is a dangerous thing for young races. There are truths in this galaxy that are better left alone. The Vex representative's mechanical voice cut through the air. Your species shows promise in basic technology, but you are clearly not ready for full membership in the Council. We will assign you to mining operations in Sector 779. There you will prove your worth through honest labor. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. These beings were treating humanity like children, giving them busy work while the real decisions were made by others. He had expected this meeting to be about partnership, but it was clear that the Council saw humans as nothing more than useful tools. Dr. Alex Chen, who had been standing quietly behind them, stepped forward. Jake had brought the scientist because Chen had studied alien cultures and languages for most of his life. The man was thin and wore thick glasses, but his mind was sharper than any weapon. If I may ask, honored counselors, what records do you have of the early history of this galaxy? On our journey here, we discovered some ruins that seem much older than your current civilizations. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Supreme Counselor Vextar's eyes narrowed to burning slits. There are no ruins older than our civilizations, human. We are the first and greatest races to achieve true advancement. Your primitive sensors must have malfunctioned. Chen pressed on despite the obvious danger. With respect, the technology we found appears to be far more advanced than anything I see here. The energy signatures alone suggest knowledge of forces that current science barely understands. Queen Mind Ixara's offspring began to buzz more loudly, and Jake could see that Chen had touched on something important. The Vex representative leaned forward in its throne. You will cease all archaeological activities immediately. Such investigations are forbidden to junior species. Jake made a decision that would change everything. We respect the Council's authority, but we cannot ignore what we have seen. If there were advanced civilizations before yours, surely their knowledge could benefit everyone. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Supreme Counselor Vextar stood from his throne, his massive form casting a shadow over the humans below. You will return to your assigned duties and forget these foolish notions. The history of this galaxy is already written, and there is no place in it for the fantasies of primitive minds. As they were escorted back to their ship, Jake could see that Chen was deep in thought. Once they were alone, the scientist spoke quietly. Captain, those ruins I found contain technology that could reshape our understanding of physics itself. If the Council is this afraid of us asking questions, what are they trying to hide? Jake looked out at the stars beyond the station and made a promise to himself. Humanity had come too far to be satisfied with scraps from the Council's table. Whatever secrets lay hidden in the galaxy's past, he would find them, even if it meant challenging the most powerful beings in known space.